Hi everybody, and welcome to Glendale, California. My name's Jeff Weinstein and I'm your host today for our walk through the neighborhood. We're calling our program Nature in Your Neighborhood because a lot of people don't think you can find any nature where you live. They feel you have to go to a park or a wilderness hike, but that's not true. You can look around, use your senses, and observe what's going on around you. The key thing is to slow down, take time, and watch and hear what's around you. The five senses that we have are hearing, sight, smell, taste, and touch. But you know, I don't always remember those, so I have a little way to help me remember. One is, this is my hearing, my sight, my smell, my taste, and my touch. You look kind of silly, but at least you'll remember all five senses, and if you've mentioned them before, okay? Now, when we're out hiking, especially in a neighborhood, we need to use our ears and our nose and our eyes. So that's what we're going to talk about real quick. I have my friend the coyote here. He's taking the place of your neighborhood dog today. So if you've looked at a dog's nose or a coyote's nose, it's large. And if you've touched it, it's usually wet. And that wet nose helps to capture the scent molecules were out there. So a dog's sense of smell is actually 10,000 to 100,000 times better than your smell or my smell. And then if you look at those big ears help them hear. They can move around. If you've ever noticed a dog's or a cat's ears, the way they wiggle, a human ear has 6 muscles. A dog's ear has 18 and a cat has 30. So their ears are moving around. So when we're on our hike today, we're going to try and do ears and nose smelling to see how we can sense our environment. So when you think of animals in your neighborhood, or especially wild animals, you might think it's a squirrel or a pigeon or some kind of rodent. But there are actually these type of animals out there. We've got raccoons and opossums, skunks and coyotes, because as the cities have developed, they're encroaching on the habitat of these animals. So these animals either have to push further back into the wilderness or learn to adapt and live in the city. And that's what these animals have done. You may not see them when you're out on your walk, but you will see animal evidence. Things like their footprints or their tracks. You might see where they've gone to the bathroom, and we call it scat. So you might see the scat. I think you know what a dog's scat looks like. So if you see something a little differently, it's probably one of these animals. We might see nests or holes or burrows where these animals live. We might see bones, and you can look at the bones and figure out what animal was there. So these are all clues and evidence that these animals are out there. It also depends on the time of day we're out there. We're going to be taking our hike right now about 2 in the afternoon, which is pretty much the peak of the heat. But if you go out earlier in the day or later when the sun's starting to set, you might see a whole different set of animals and different types of plants opening and closing flowers. So I think we're pretty much ready. Make sure your shoes are tight and let's hit the trail. Okay, so now we're on our walk through the neighborhood. I have my nature journal with me. I always like to put down the date and the time of my walk or my hike, the location, and the weather, because depending on the weather, we might see different plants or different animals. We've had a number of wildfires lately, so the sky is pretty smoky. That might affect what we see. There might be ash and smoke, and the plants and the animals might be responding to that. But let's take a look. We've come across an oak tree, which is a protected tree here in the city of Glendale. And the first thing that I notice are the roots of this tree. I think it's pretty amazing. You think of most plants and they put their roots down into the soil trying to get moisture. Some plants, some trees, their roots spread out on top of the soil. This one has a lot of exposed roots. So I start to wonder, was there ever soil piled up on top of this? You know, why did these roots get up on top? Those are things that you can make notes of, and when you get back home, question that. Again, I know it's an oak tree based on the leaves and acorns, which I see on the ground here. So these are plant clues, the leaves, the fruits, the flowers, the bark. You know, this is a pretty nice tree. I think we might try and do a bark rubbing here. So let's get out our tracing paper or sketch paper. If you have some kind of thin paper, you can use crayons or chalk. You tape it up and let's see what happens. But remember, the bark is like the skin of the tree, so we don't want to disturb it. When we're done, we'll take the tape off. So first you grab a crayon, take the paper off of it, and start rubbing, and let's see what we get. And feel free to change colors anytime you want. Okay, so this is coming out pretty. We're doing crayons now, and now we're going to add in some chalk. That's another way you can do the rubbing. Remember to do a tree that has dry bark, because if it's wet, it's going to make a mess on your paper and you won't really get the texture of the bark. I think that's looking pretty good. Why don't we stop here? Remember, you can do a series of bark rubbings, and then when we're done, put them into your nature journal or make another book. People call it a bark book. So we'll thank this oak tree for letting us use its bark while we're here, and we'll move on down the sidewalk. Another fun activity is to get some construction paper and cut that up into squares of different colors. I then let people choose a color, and that's their color for the hike. So I just chose a red square, and that means I'm going to try and find things on this hike that match this color. So let's see how good we are at observing what's on our way. Okay, still on the search for something red, and we've come across some flowers here. They're a little more orange than red, but I think that's close enough and it'll work for us. So let's keep that in mind and see what else we can find along the way. All right, well, here we've come across a pomegranate bush. These also grow into big trees. They're not quite ripe, but when they do get ripe, they're going to be big and sort of red. And I don't know if you've ever seen the inside. It's filled with these little red gelatin type seeds, kind of tart, sour and sweet. So another clue, the fruit of the tree. That's how I know this one. I know the pomegranate fruit. So we'll maybe come back in a couple months and see where those fruits are then. So when we're out on our walk, it's not only good for us physically to get out and get some exercise and let the sun shine on us, it's also good for our mental well-being, getting outdoors, seeing nature, seeing the green of things around us. So that's why I encourage you to get out. It doesn't have to be in a park or on a trail in the wilderness park. It can be in your own neighborhood. Take your dog for a walk, walk with your family, and explore your neighborhood. So we've come across a tree here. We call it a street tree in Glendale. This is a golden rain tree. And I think it's pretty interesting because you look at the seed pods on this tree. They're very fragile, almost like paper. And if you look inside, you can actually see the seeds. So again, this is another plant clue. We've got seeds here and these seed pods. Now, I really like this tree. So there's something else you can do is you can adopt a tree. Not physically bring it into your family, but this could be a tree that I'm going to take note of every time I'm on my walk. So now it's in September. I've noted there's seed pods and seeds. Maybe I'll come back in a month and see how the tree has changed. Maybe the leaves will all be down. Maybe the pods will be gone. I'll come back the month after that and see now maybe there's green leaves. So you watch this tree over the course of a year. Come back every month, make your observations, and then when you're all done, you can see how things have changed during the course of 12 months. So I think I'm going to adopt you, tree. You're going to stay here, but still be part of our family. So now we're going to do a leaf rubbing. We've picked a couple leaves. One is our oak leaf and the other is from that golden rain tree. You put your leaf on a hard surface. Here we have our journal, and then cover it with some paper, our tracing paper, our sketch paper. Again, we've got our crayon with the paper peeled back. We're laying it flat and rubbing away to see what comes out as far as the shape and the texture. Okay, you can see the little oak leaf starting to appear. And down at the bottom, you've got the larger golden rain tree leaf. All right, that's pretty. Again, you can add different colors, and we're going to add a little blue and A masterpiece of art. Again, when we're done, we can tuck this into our nature journal and we can put our date and the location, and we'll remember that this was on September 17th on Vine Street here in the city of Glendale. The main thing we used today on our walk was our nature journal. We use that to stop and reflect, to sketch, to make observations. So I want to show you how you can make your own nature journal. Some can be as simple as buying a composition book. This just cost me $1 at the dollar store. If you have some leftover notebook paper, just put it inside of some construction paper, staple it, and decorate the way you like. I put a stop sign on here, not only because I might see a stop sign when I'm on my walk, but this reminds me to stop and slow down to observe things. So here's a really cool way to make your own nature journal. Just take some lunch bags. The first thing you do is tape the flap closed, and then you lay them down alternating directions. So flap that way, flap this way, flap this way, flap that way, and so on. All you then do is fold them in half. You can staple them or punch holes, put ribbon through there, and you've got a nature journal. You can tape pieces of paper on here, maybe your leaf rubbings or your bark rubbings. And it's cool because you also have little pockets to put leaves and sticks and things that you collect on the way. I made a smaller version here, and you can see how that would work, just tying it off. And if you want to close things off, you just tie it together, everything stays in place. So there's a quick way to make your nature journal, keep it with you, bring it on your walks, and you'll remind yourself of what you've seen in the past and what questions you might have for the future. So we opened with our conversation about using our 5 senses. Really, when you're out here, you can't use your sense of taste very much, but you can use your sight and your hearing and especially your touch. So I've got one of our little oak leaves here. If you feel it, it's kind of leathery and waxy and actually pointed on the edge. And all these things are adaptations for this leaf to survive in this type of climate. And that's something that you want to observe, is the different textures, the different designs of the plants that we see. And why are they like that? Are they originally from this area? I was fascinated by the pomegranate tree, so I went online, did a little research, because I know that the fruit's used in a number of different recipes around the world. So I wanted to know, where did that plant first come from and how did it get here to Southern California? So I hope that when you're out there, you make those observations and it piques your interest and you want to do further research. So this is our oak leaf. We did a little research on that. I was wondering too, why do they call it an acorn if it's an oak tree? And I found out that in some places they actually call it an oak nut. So then I wonder, where does the word acorn come from? You can see how you can just start your mind questioning and doing research. So again, my oak leaf, and we'll let it free and see where it goes. So here we have some resources that might help you when you're out on your walk. We have some brochures on tracks and bones. We have bird books, and we have some books here on crafts and fun with nature. So when you're out on your walk, you can gather sticks and leaves and rocks, bring them back to the house and make a good craft project. Okay? We hope you take advantage of these resources, find things on the internet, start to question what you've seen out there and do research on that. So just a couple little rules when you're out walking. Always go with somebody. Let your guardian, your parents know where you're going. Only take what you need. We don't want you breaking off branches and ripping off flowers. Just take what you need. Also, depending where you are, there might be some rules that say you can't collect things, so follow those rules. If you're out walking and you see your neighbor out on the front porch, ask them if it's okay that you gather something. Let them know what you're doing and respect their decisions. And finally, don't chase animals. If you're observing an animal, don't go up quickly and scare it off. Spend time watching it, make your sketches, and you might learn from it. Okay? So I hope you've learned a little something today about taking a walk in your neighborhood and using your nature journal and your 5 senses to observe things. So until we see you again, we want you to take care and take a hike. Thank you.